Get out. I am absolutely disgusted by the smell of your body. That vicious shout ended with a crumpled $20 bill thrown directly into my face. On a dark, deserted highway, my husband abandoned me while I was still bleeding from a recent surgery. He drove away with complete arrogance, fully believing I would slowly die out there. But 5 hours later, he fell to his knees in front of his television, trembling in pure terror when the news anchor revealed who I truly was. Before the story begins, please let us know in the comments which state you are watching from. Do not forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you even more thrilling stories. The atmosphere inside the brand new white Chevy Tahoe was suffocating. The air conditioning was blasted to the lowest setting, leaving a thin layer of fog on the windows. However, the freezing air could not numb the intense tension radiating between the two people inside. Derek steered with his right hand while his left hand continuously pumped a bottle of synthetic citrus air freshener. The harsh spraying sound matched Derek's heavy, angry breathing. The sharp, chemical lemon scent immediately filled the cabin, colliding with the faint, metallic smell of infection emanating from the passenger seat. Good Lord, Willow. Do you even shower anymore? Derek snapped, his eyes glaring at the dark road ahead, though his venom was clearly aimed at the pale woman beside him. I drove this car off the dealership lot just a week ago. The leather seats still had that new car smell. Now it smells like a fish market that has not been cleaned in a month. Willow, the woman being yelled at, could only look down. Her body shivered beneath a thin, worn-out jacket. Her face was deathly pale, her lips dry and cracked. Both of her hands tightly gripped her lower abdomen, as if trying to keep her insides from spilling out. I am sorry, Derek. I tried to clean it before we left. But the pus keeps seeping through the bandages. Willow's voice was faint, sounding more like a painful whisper. Just 10 days ago, Willow underwent surgery to remove uterine fibroids. She was supposed to be on strict bed rest. She was supposed to receive proper post-operative care. But Derek, her husband, who had just been promoted to regional marketing manager, refused to buy the brand-name prescription antibiotics the doctor ordered. Generic drugs are the exact same thing. Stop being such a baby, Willow. You are just using your illness as an excuse to drain my new salary so I cannot make my car payments. That was what Derek told her. The consequences were fatal. The surgical wound became severely infected. The stitches were inflamed, bright red, and now leaking a foul-smelling fluid. Derek slammed his hand against the steering wheel, making Willow flinch. A sharp pain instantly shot across her stomach from the sudden jolt. You need to have some self-awareness. We're going to a housewarming party hosted by Dave, my senior colleague. If you smell like rotting garbage, how am I supposed to show my face? People will think I am keeping a wife who does not even know how to groom herself. Tears streamed down Willow's face. Derek, I am sick. If you are so embarrassed, why did you force me to come? I told you I wanted to stay home. If you do not show up, people will start asking where my wife is. They will think our marriage is falling apart. Derek cut her off sharply. It was his ego talking. He only needed Willow as a trophy, a prop to prove he was a successful man with a perfect family. But he refused to deal with the flaws of his prop. Derek sprayed the air freshener again, this time pointing it directly at Willow. Willow coughed, her eyes stinging, her chest burning. The harsh chemicals mixed with the scent of her own infection, making her incredibly nauseous. Hold your breath if you have to. Just do not throw up in my expensive car, Derek barked without a single ounce of mercy. The SUV kept speeding down the desolate interstate highway outside the city. The sky outside was pitch black and cloudy, as dark as the fate of the woman hunched over in pain next to the man who once promised to protect her at the altar. Mile marker 45. This stretch of Interstate 87 was notorious for being empty at night. On either side, there were only vast, dark fields and towering pine trees, looking like ominous shadows. The streetlights were completely dead, leaving them to rely solely on the headlights of the rare passing vehicles. Suddenly, Derek yanked the steering wheel to the right. The tires screeched violently against the rough asphalt of the shoulder lane. The violent shake caused Willow to let out a muffled scream. It hurts. Derek, please. Willow groaned, her hands instinctively pressing down on her stomach, which felt like it was being sliced open with a hot knife. A warm liquid seeped through her bandages once again. The smell became even stronger. Derek did not care. He killed the engine, then turned to look at Willow with a level of disgust she had never seen before. It was no longer the look of a husband, but the look of someone staring at a dead rat on their kitchen counter. Get out, Derek said coldly. Willow gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What do you mean?" "I said get out," Derek shouted, his voice echoing loudly in the cabin. "I cannot take it anymore. I am nauseous. I am going to vomit smelling your body. Get out right now." "Derek, we are in the middle of nowhere. It is pitch black and it is going to rain." Willow's voice shook violently. Pure terror began creeping up her spine. "I cannot even walk, Derek. My stitches hurt so much." Derek refused to listen. He forcefully hit the unlock button, reached across the console, and shoved Willow's shoulder violently. "Get out. Stop making my car seats stink. Do you have any idea what is at stake? I have to pick up a major client in this car tomorrow morning. If your stench sticks to the upholstery, I could lose my entire contract." With whatever strength she had left, Willow tried to hold onto the door handle. "Derek, please just take me home first. If you do not want to take me to the party, do not leave me here. For God's sake, I am your wife. My wife smells good. My wife is beautiful. Not some rotting zombie like you." Derek shoved her even harder until Willow tumbled backward out of the car. Willow fell hard, landing on the cold, gravel-covered dirt on the side of the highway. An excruciating pain exploded in her lower abdomen. She shrieked. Her tears poured down uncontrollably. She tried to get up, but her legs were completely numb. Derek stared down at her from inside the vehicle. His face was filled with cruel satisfaction. He reached into his leather wallet and pulled out a crisp $20 bill. With a dismissive gesture, he crumpled the money into a small paper ball and threw it right at Willow's tear-soaked face. "There is $20, Derek said loudly. "Call an Uber or go buy some medicine at whatever rural pharmacy you can find. I do not care. Do not come back to the house until that smell is gone. I am not opening my door for trash." "Derek, no." Willow screamed, her hands reaching out into the cold air. Without hesitation, Derek slammed the passenger door shut, locked it, and stepped hard on the gas pedal. The white Chevy Tahoe sped off, leaving a cloud of exhaust and dust hitting Willow's face. Willow could only stare at the red taillights of her husband's car, slowly shrinking into the distance before being completely swallowed by the darkness of the night. She was abandoned, alone, violently ill, and utterly humiliated. The rain began to fall. It started as a light drizzle, but within minutes it turned into a heavy downpour accompanied by freezing winds. Willow remained slumped on the side of the road. The $20 bill Derek had thrown was now lying in a muddy puddle near her feet, wet and filthy, exactly like her dignity in that moment. "It hurts, Mrs. Higgins. It hurts so much," Willow whimpered. She was calling out for the foster mother who raised her, the only person who had ever truly loved her before passing away 5 years ago. The freezing rain pierced her skin, yet Willow's body felt like it was burning up. Her fever was spiking dangerously high. The infection in her stomach was clearly worsening. Every time she tried to move, it felt as though 1,000 needles were stabbing her internally. She looked around the pitch-black highway. The only thing she could barely make out in the flashes of lightning was the green mile marker sign reading mile 45. There were no houses in sight. Willow forced herself to stand. She knew if she stayed in the mud, she would either freeze to death or bleed out. Holding onto a metal traffic sign, she dragged her feet. 1 step, agonizing pain. 2 steps, searing burning. 3 steps. Her vision began to blur. A massive semi-truck flew past her at high speed. Its horn blared deafeningly. A splash of dirty water from its massive tires drenched Willow's already soaked body. She stumbled and nearly fell into the drainage ditch, but her hand instinctively grabbed the old pendant necklace resting on her chest. That necklace was the only possession she had owned since she was an infant. It was an antique gold locket with intricate engravings that Derek always mocked as cheap flea market junk. Derek had even tried to pawn it once, but Willow fought him tooth and nail to keep it. It was the only clue she had regarding her biological parents. "God, if this is the end of my life, please forgive me," Willow whispered. Her consciousness was fading in and out. In the distance, she saw a different set of headlights. It was not just one car, but a motorcade. There were flashing blue strobe lights cutting through the heavy rain. Willow tried to wave her hand, but her arms felt like lead. "Help!" Her voice was nothing more than a faint exhale. The luxury motorcade grew closer. The lead vehicle, a sleek black sedan with a small flag on the hood, slowed down when its high beams caught the silhouette of a woman stumbling on the shoulder of the highway. However, Willow never got the chance to see who stepped out. Her body finally gave up, her legs losing all power. The world spun and then went entirely black. Willow collapsed onto the wet asphalt, right as the door of the luxury sedan swung open, and someone shouted in a panic for medical assistance. While Willow was fighting for her life in the middle of a storm, Derek was laughing freely in a luxury downtown apartment. He never went to Dave's housewarming party. That was just an excuse. Derek was now sitting on a plush sofa, holding a glass of cheap wine he pretended was expensive. Next to him sat a beautiful woman wearing revealing clothes and heavy makeup, Chloe. Chloe was the new secretary at Derek's corporate office. She was a highly ambitious woman who knew exactly how to manipulate an ego-driven man like Derek. "So, you really just dumped her on the side of the highway?" Chloe asked, giggling in amusement. Her manicured fingers played with the buttons on Derek's shirt. "I really did, babe. I swear I could not take it anymore." "The smell was unbearable, Chloe." "It ruined my appetite for a week," Derek answered proudly, as if abandoning his sick wife was some great display of masculinity. "Plus, she is just a burden, always sick, looking miserable and making me look bad in front of everyone. Nothing like you." Chloe smiled seductively, resting her head on Derek's shoulder. "But she is not going to call the cops on you, right?" Derek let out a dismissive laugh. "Call the cops? She is a broke orphan, Chloe. She has no family, no connections, not even any friends. I made sure to isolate her from everyone over the years. Who is going to listen to the ramblings of a homeless-looking woman like her? She is probably crying right now, trying to find an Uber to get back to our house. And when she gets there, I am not opening the door tonight. Let her sleep on the porch so she remembers her place," Derek said cruelly. He pulled out his smartphone and deliberately powered it off. "No distractions tonight," Derek whispered, giving her a wicked wink. The two of them enjoyed the expensive dinner they had delivered: premium steak, truffle fries, and artisanal pasta. Derek ate greedily, feeling as though a massive weight had just been lifted off his shoulders. He felt free. He felt like a king. In Derek's twisted mind, Willow was nothing more than a parasite ruining his image of success. Discarding her was, according to his sick logic, the first step toward his true elite lifestyle. He did not care at all about the raging storm outside. He did not care if Willow's surgical stitches burst open. To him, Willow was just a rotting piece of the past. "Tomorrow, I am going to buy the most expensive car cologne on the market," Derek muttered while chewing his steak, "just to make sure the scent of her dead carcass is completely erased from my vehicle." "You should buy me that designer bag while you are at it," Chloe whined playfully. "Done deal. Once my end-of-year bonus clears, there is nothing I will not buy for you." They laughed together again, a laugh that sounded incredibly evil when contrasted with Willow's immense suffering at mile 45. They were partying on top of someone else's misery, completely unaware that the wheel of karma was spinning at full speed straight toward them. The clock struck 11 p.m. The rain outside had stopped, leaving behind a freezing chill. Derek and Chloe were relaxing in the living room. They were lounging lazily in front of a massive flat-screen television, enjoying the rest of their night. Derek felt a bit sleepy, but his eyes remained glued to the late-night news broadcast. "I am so bored of these political debates," Chloe complained. "Change it to the music channel, babe. Hold on a second. They are reporting a massive pileup on the interstate. I need to see if there will be traffic tomorrow since I have an early morning meeting," Derek replied casually. On the television screen, large, bold text appeared over a flashing red background. "Breaking news." A female news anchor with a highly serious expression appeared on the screen. Behind her played amateur video footage showing a wet, dark highway surrounded by yellow police tape and dozens of patrol cars with flashing strobe lights. "Viewers, welcome back to our breaking news coverage. A victim of severe neglect was discovered in critical condition on Interstate 87, near mile marker 45, at approximately 8 p.m. tonight," the anchor stated. Derek's heart skipped a beat. Mile 45. That was exactly where he had kicked Willow out. Probably just a standard hit and run," Derek mumbled, trying to calm his sudden nerves. His hand reached for his wine glass, trying to look relaxed. However, the anchor's next sentence caused the glass to slip from Derek's hand and crash onto the carpet. "The victim found is a woman without any identification. She was discovered unconscious, suffering from severe hemorrhaging from a recent surgical wound. In a shocking turn of events, the victim was rescued directly by the governor's motorcade, which happened to be passing by alongside renowned billionaire Richard Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises." Derek's jaw dropped wide open. Sterling Enterprises was the parent company where he worked. Richard Sterling was the ultimate boss, the owner of everything. A man so high up the corporate ladder that Derek had never even seen his face in person. Chloe sat up straight, her eyes bulging. Wait, isn't that your ultimate boss? Derek did not answer. His face had turned as white as a sheet. But the true horror was only just beginning. The TV broadcast switched to a live interview taking place in front of the lobby at Sterling Medical Center. There stood Richard Sterling, a distinguished older man known for his ruthless corporate demeanor, sobbing uncontrollably in front of a cluster of reporters' microphones. He was clutching a shiny object in his hand, a necklace, an antique gold locket with intricate engravings. Derek's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. He recognized that necklace immediately. He knew perfectly well it was the flea market junk Willow always wore. Richard Sterling's voice shook violently as he spoke to the cameras. I thank God tonight. For 25 years, I have searched relentlessly for my biological daughter who was kidnapped as an infant. Tonight, God brought us back together through a horrific tragedy. This necklace, this Sterling family heirloom, is the absolute proof. The woman who was left to die on the side of that highway is my flesh and blood, the sole heiress to Sterling Enterprises. Derek's entire world collapsed in an instant. Dead silence filled the apartment. Then the news anchor's sharp voice returned. At this moment, state police are aggressively hunting down the suspect who ruthlessly abandoned the critically ill victim. Authorities have stated they have obtained high-definition highway camera footage that clearly captured the suspect's license plate. The vehicle is a white Chevy Tahoe. Derek leaped to his feet. His legs were shaking so violently that his knees knocked together. He was hyperventilating. Cold sweat the size of marbles poured down his forehead. I am a dead man, Derek hissed, his voice hoarse with unimaginable terror. Derek, that is your car. You are on the highway cameras. Chloe screamed hysterically, backing away from Derek as if he were a contagious disease. Derek grabbed his own hair in sheer panic. He had just thrown his wife out like trash because of a bad smell. And it turned out the wife he threw away was the biological daughter of the billionaire who owned his entire livelihood. The wife he threw a $20 bill at was secretly heir to a $10 billion fortune. And right now, the richest, most powerful man in the state was hunting him down. Derek screamed hysterically, kicking the glass coffee table in front of him until it shattered into pieces. But his screaming was useless. On the television screen, Richard Sterling stared dead into the camera with a murderous glare, as if looking straight into Derek's soul. Whoever did this to my daughter, Richard Sterling growled in a terrifyingly low tone, I promise you, you will deeply regret the day you were born into this world. The television screen glowed in the dim room, leaving Derek slumped on the floor, trapped in a living nightmare of his own making. The silence in Chloe's apartment felt far more terrifying than any scream. The news anchor's voice continuously looping, Richard Sterling's statement felt like a sledgehammer hitting Derek's skull repeatedly. Biological daughter, Derek repeated the words blindly, his voice breaking. Willow is Richard Sterling's biological daughter. This is impossible. This has to be a nightmare. This is a sick prank. Derek touched his own face with violently shaking hands. His skin was cold and clammy. His heart was hammering against his ribcage so hard it physically hurt, feeling as though it would explode. He tried to stand, but his legs felt like jelly. He collapsed back onto the thick carpet. Chloe, who just hours ago was cuddling up to him, was now standing in the far corner of the room with her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She looked at Derek not with admiration, but with absolute horror. It was as if Derek was a monster who had just taken off his human mask. You are a psychopath, Chloe hissed, her voice trembling. You told me she was just a broke orphan. You said no one would ever look for her. Now look at the news. The entire country is going to be hunting you down. Shut up. Derek barked, trying to cover his massive fear with anger. We are in the same boat, Chloe. Do not act like a saint now. Excuse me? Chloe shrieked, her panic making her instantly defensive. She snatched her designer purse off the counter. I want zero part in this. You drove the car. You kicked her out. You threw the money at her. I was just sitting in my apartment doing nothing. Do not you dare drag me into your mess with the Sterling family. They can destroy anyone's life with the snap of their fingers. You were the one hyping me up. Derek crawled to his feet, trying to grab Chloe's arm. But she slapped his hand away violently. Do not touch me. Get out of my apartment right now. I do not want the police raiding my place and dragging me in as an accessory. Get out, Derek. Chloe ran to the front door and ripped it wide open. Get out right now or I am screaming for security. Derek stared at Chloe in utter disbelief. The woman who 5 hours ago praised him as her dream man was now kicking him out like a stray dog. This was the true face of betrayal. But Derek did not have the luxury of time to argue about love or loyalty. He had a much bigger problem on his hands: life in prison and absolute poverty. Derek's cunning mind started racing, fueled by pure adrenaline. Think, Derek, think. The police have not arrested you yet because they only just identified the make and model. They do not know exactly who owns it yet tonight. Your plates might be on camera, but the DMV verification process takes a few hours. You still have a tiny window before your identity is fully exposed. He needed to control the narrative. He could not be the evil husband who abandoned his sick wife. He had to play the tragic husband whose wife ran away in a manic state. Derek snatched his car keys off the counter. Without giving Chloe a second glance, he bolted out of the apartment. The apartment hallway felt endlessly long and dizzying. Inside the elevator, he saw his reflection in the mirrored walls. Pale, drenched in sweat, bloodshot eyes. Okay. Willow was sick. Willow suffered from extreme post-operative depression. That is the angle. Derek muttered to his own reflection, rehearsing the lies he was about to tell. She lost her mind. She demanded to get out. She ran into the woods. Yes, that is the story. I did not dump her. She ran away. Derek sprinted into the underground parking garage. He jumped into the white Chevy Tahoe, the silent witness to his horrific crime. The overpowering scent of the citrus cologne he had oversprayed earlier still lingered, now mixing with the sharp scent of his own fear sweat. He started the engine. He had one goal: get home, stage a crime scene, and then go straight to the police precinct. He had to be the one filing a report before he became a wanted fugitive. The drive home felt like a descent into hell. Every time he saw a police cruiser passing by or heard a siren in the distance, Derek flinched, convinced they were coming for him. But the roads were mostly quiet. Arriving at their upscale suburban rental home, funded by Derek's minor corporate embezzlement and maxed-out credit cards, Derek immediately went to work. He did not even take off his shoes. He ran straight into the master bedroom, the very room that had served as Willow's prison for the last 10 days while she suffered. Derek began tearing the room apart. He ripped the bedsheets off to make it look like a struggle, knocked over water bottles, and threw several of Willow's clothes onto the floor. He wanted to create the illusion that Willow had suffered a severe mental breakdown before fleeing. He opened the medicine cabinet, grabbed his own prescription sleeping pills, and scattered a few capsules on Willow's nightstand. He wanted it to look as if she had been abusing sedatives. Perfect, Derek whispered, panting heavily. This is bulletproof. My wife went crazy because of her surgery. She got hysterical in the car and jumped out on her own. Satisfied that his staged scene looked convincing, Derek went into the bathroom. He splashed cold water on his face and put in a few drops of allergy eye drops to make his eyes look red and puffy from crying. He aggressively messed up his hair to look frantic. It was now past midnight. Derek sped his car toward the nearest police precinct, far from where he dumped Willow, claiming it was the area she had gone missing in. Inside the quiet police precinct, there were only 2 desk sergeants looking incredibly bored. Derek stumbled through the double doors, throwing himself to his knees right in front of the reception desk. "Officer, please help me. My wife is missing." Derek cried out in a highly dramatic, raspy voice. The officer drinking coffee immediately sat up straight. "Calm down, sir. Take a deep breath. Have a seat. What do you mean missing? We were driving home from the hospital." Derek began his web of lies, forcing crocodile tears down his face. "My wife just had major surgery, officer. Her mental state was completely shattered. She has been severely depressed. On the highway, she just snapped. She started screaming hysterically in the passenger seat." Derek looked down, burying his face in his hands. The traffic was at a standstill because of the storm. I took my eyes off her for 1 second. Suddenly, she unbuckled her seatbelt, threw the door open, and bolted into the rain. "Officer, I tried to chase her down, but it was pouring, and she ran straight into the dark woods off the shoulder. I searched for 2 solid hours but could not find her anywhere. I am terrified she might hurt herself." The officer frowned, taking notes on a notepad. "What time did this happen, sir?" "Around 7 or 8 p.m. tonight," Derek answered quickly. "Why are you only reporting this now?" the officer asked sharply. Derek had his answer ready. "I was trying to find her myself first, officer. I was having a panic attack. I drove around the back roads screaming her name. My phone died because I was using the flashlight to search the woods. I only just realized I needed professional help." The desk officer exchanged a skeptical look with his partner. There was obvious doubt in their eyes, but protocol was protocol. "What is your wife's name?" "Willow." "Willow Sterling," Derek answered. He deliberately used his own last name, hoping the cops had not yet connected the dots. All right, we will start a preliminary missing persons report. But sir, we will need to go inspect the scene and… Suddenly, the television mounted in the corner of the precinct waiting room replayed the top-breaking news story. The anchor's voice echoed clearly across the quiet room. Authorities have confirmed a white Chevy Tahoe with the license plate B1220NY is the vehicle used by the suspect to abandon the victim. Derek's face drained of all color. That was his exact license plate. The officer who was typing the report slowly stopped. He looked up at the television screen, then looked back down at the intake form where Derek had just written down his license plate number. The officer slowly placed his pen on the desk. His right hand drifted down to rest firmly on his duty belt, right next to his sidearm. His gaze turned instantly icy. Sir, the officer said in a low, dangerous tone, the white Tahoe parked out front belongs to you, does it not? Derek swallowed hard. His throat felt like sandpaper. Yes, officer. But there are a million white Tahoes in New York. True. But yours has the exact same license plate as the one currently listed on a statewide FBI manhunt connected to Richard Sterling's daughter, the officer stated firmly. He gave his partner a subtle nod to block the exit doors. Derek panicked, his master plan crumbling to dust. Officer, listen to me. This is a massive misunderstanding. The news has it all wrong. She ran away on her own. I am a good husband. If you are such a good husband, why was your wife found suffering from a massive septic infection and severe dehydration while you walk in here smelling like expensive cologne in a dry suit? The officer snapped back. Derek was speechless. Checkmate. You are going to sit right there and not move a muscle. The detectives are on their way down here right now. This case was just taken over by the State Bureau of Investigation because it involves a highly prominent figure, the officer ordered, pressing a firm hand down on Derek's shoulder to keep him in the chair. Derek slumped into the hard wooden chair. The bulletproof alibi he had crafted was destroyed before it even took off. Now, he was not the concerned citizen reporting a missing person. He was a prime suspect awaiting his inevitable doom. In stark contrast to the absolute chaos Derek was experiencing, the presidential VIP suite at Sterling Medical Center was impeccably quiet, sacred, and smelled faintly of soothing lavender aromatherapy. Willow slowly opened her eyes. The soft, ambient lighting gently greeted her vision. The very first thing she registered was the absence of pain. The agonizing, tearing sensation in her abdomen had been replaced by a comfortable numbness, courtesy of the highest-grade painkillers available. She was lying on an incredibly plush mattress, covered by high thread-count silk sheets. An IV dripping clear fluids was carefully taped to her hand. Willow. A deep, older man's voice called out to her softly from the side of the bed. Willow slowly turned her head. She saw an older man in a wrinkled, incredibly expensive tailored suit. His eyes were red and puffy from crying. He was sitting in a visitor's chair, gently holding her hand as if she were made of fragile glass. Willow recognized his face. That was Richard Sterling, her husband's ultimate boss. The man whose portrait hung in the grand lobby of Derek's corporate office. Mr. Sterling. Willow's voice was raspy and weak. She tried to pull her hand away, feeling completely unworthy of being touched by someone as powerful as Richard Sterling, especially considering how filthy she felt. But Richard gently held on to her hand. Do not call me Mr. Sterling. Call me Dad, sweetheart, Richard said, his tears falling once again. Willow was entirely confused. What do you mean, sir? I am just a normal person. I am married to one of your employees. Richard shook his head slowly and picked up an object from the bedside table. The antique gold locket. He held it up for Willow to see. Where did you get this, sweetheart? That was in my bassinet when I was left at the steps of the foster home 25 years ago. Mrs. Higgins always told me it was the only clue I had to my biological parents. Willow answered softly. Richard clicked the locket open. Inside was a tiny, faded photograph. A picture of a young couple holding a newborn baby. The young man in this photo is me, and this beautiful baby is you, Claire Sterling. My daughter, who was kidnapped by a disgruntled former driver 25 years ago. For a quarter of a century, we searched every corner of this country for you. But the kidnapper died in a car crash before he could ever tell the police where he left you. Willow gasped, tears spilling from her eyes without her even realizing it. Her entire life, she had lived alone, insulted as an unwanted orphan, treated like garbage by her husband's family. And now, It turned out she had a father who had never stopped looking for her. Is this real? Willow whispered. We ran a rapid DNA test while you were in emergency surgery. The results came back an hour ago. A 99.9% match. Richard leaned down and kissed the back of Willow's hand. Forgive me, Claire. Forgive me for taking so long to find you, only to find you suffering like this. Who did this to you, sweetheart? Who let your infection get this bad and dumped you on the highway? Willow's memories flashed back to that horrific night, Derek's vicious face, the crumpled $20 bill hitting her cheek, the vile insults about her smelling like a corpse. That emotional pain stung far worse than her surgical wounds ever did. Willow closed her eyes. Her tears flowed heavily, soaking into her plush pillow. My husband, Derek. He was embarrassed because I was sick and smelled bad. He said I was not worthy of riding in his fancy new SUV. Richard's jaw clenched tight. The veins in his neck bulged. The warm, loving, fatherly aura instantly vanished, replaced by the terrifying, dominant aura of a ruthless billionaire CEO. Derek, Richard muttered, spitting the name out like venom. The mid-level marketing manager who just got promoted. The one who financed that car through our corporate credit union. Willow nodded weakly. Richard stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. He pressed the intercom button on the wall. Marcus, get in here. A broad-shouldered man in a sharp suit entered the room instantly. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Ensure our best corporate defense attorneys are on standby and get the district attorney on the phone right now. I want this handled with maximum stacked charges. Attempted murder, gross negligence, and felony domestic abuse. Richard ordered with ice-cold precision. And one more thing. Make sure the press knows exactly who the suspect is. But do not let the cops throw him in a cell tonight. Make sure he comes here first. Sir? Marcus asked, slightly confused. I want to look him in the eyes when he realizes exactly who he threw away. Let him come here and beg. By the next morning, the news of Richard Sterling finding his lost daughter exploded into the #1 national headline. Sterling Medical Center was completely surrounded by hundreds of reporters from every major news network, print magazine, and digital media outlet. Derek had not been jailed yet. Following the discreet instructions of Richard Sterling's inside connections, the police released Derek from the precinct at dawn on a strict supervisory bond, giving him a false glimmer of hope that he might still be able to save himself if he could just manipulate Willow one last time. Derek viewed this as his absolute last lifeline. He went back to the rental house, took a shower, but deliberately put the same wrinkled clothes back on to make it look like he had not slept all night. He then sped to the hospital. In his head, Derek was crafting a new script. Willow is still weak. Willow is stupid and submissive. If I show up crying, begging for forgiveness, and say the work stress made me snap, she will definitely take me back. Especially once she realizes I am still her husband, she will not have the heart to send me to prison. Once Willow forgives me, Richard Sterling will not be able to do anything. In fact, I will become a billionaire's son-in-law. That sick delusion actually gave Derek a boost of confidence. He parked his car in the public garage and walked toward the crowded main lobby. The moment the reporters spotted Derek, they swarmed him like vultures. Camera flashes exploded like a lightning storm. Derek, is it true you abandoned your wife? Derek, what are your thoughts on your wife being Richard Sterling's heiress? How could you do something so evil? Derek stopped in the middle of the mob. He looked down at the ground, then slowly raised his face. Isai sai sai sai. Isai sai sai sai. Isai sai sai. Isai sai sai. Isai sai self of not comber. Isai Salvery. Indisisly began his performance. Members of the press, please? Please do not judge me before knowing the truth, Derek said in a dramatically raspy voice. My wife and I love each other deeply. What happened last night was a massive misunderstanding. My wife is suffering from severe postpartum depression, even though she didn't just have a baby. She jumped out of the car on her own. I spent the entire night searching the woods for her. I am a broken-hearted husband who just wants to see his wife. Derek even managed to squeeze out a few real tears for the cameras. I am here to bring my wife home. I want to apologize if I failed to protect her. Please respect our privacy during this family crisis. A few reporters actually looked slightly swayed by Derek's Oscar-worthy acting. Derek felt a surge of victory. He had successfully manipulated the narrative on national television. He marched into the hospital lobby with renewed arrogance, followed closely by a pack of reporters. He walked straight up to the main reception desk. I demand to be taken to my wife's room, Willow Sterling. Or I suppose she is registered as Claire Sterling now, Derek demanded with absolute entitlement. The receptionist glared at Derek with utter disgust before checking her monitor. "I am sorry, sir. The patient is on the presidential VIP floor. Access is strictly restricted. I am her legal husband. I have rights," Derek shouted, making sure the reporters heard him. "Look at this. They are illegally separating a husband from his sick wife. This is a violation of my civil rights." Derek started causing a massive scene. He began screaming Willow's name and tried to force his way through the glass security doors leading to the private elevators. He wanted to look like a desperate romantic fighting against the evil billionaires keeping him from his true love, Willow. "I am here, baby. I am here to take you home. Do not let them tear us apart," Derek yelled at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, the private elevator doors chimed open. The absolute chaos in the lobby went dead silent. Stepping out of the VIP elevator were 4 massive private security contractors in tactical black suits. They easily parted the sea of reporters, creating a clear pathway. Behind them emerged Richard Sterling. He walked slowly but with immense purpose. His face was entirely expressionless, but his eyes radiated a dominant, predatory aura that made everyone in the room instinctively want to step back. Derek froze. His fake, dramatic sadness evaporated instantly, replaced by the primal fear of prey coming face to face with an apex predator. "Mr. Sterling." Derek tried to put on a charming smile, reaching out his hand. "Sir, I am Derek, your employee. I mean, your son-in-law. I am here to see Willow. I have been out of my mind with worry." Richard did not even look at the extended hand. He stopped exactly 2 feet in front of Derek. He looked Derek up and down, a gaze that felt like it was peeling Derek's skin off layer by layer. "Son-in-law?" Richard repeated. His voice was not loud, but it echoed clearly across the dead silent lobby. "You have the nerve to call yourself my son-in-law?" "Yes, sir. I am Willow's legal husband," Derek answered, the cold sweat returning in full force. "What happened last night was just a normal marital argument. Willow has been very emotionally sensitive lately, and honestly, I have been exhausted working so hard for your company." "Working for my company," Richard interrupted smoothly. He gave a tiny flick of his wrist. Marcus stepped forward holding a large iPad. He turned the screen to face Derek and angled it so the press cameras could capture it perfectly. Playing on the screen was high-definition, night vision footage from a Department of Transportation highway camera. It clearly showed Derek's white SUV pulling over. It clearly showed Derek violently shoving Willow out the passenger door. It showed Derek making a throwing motion, tossing the cash at her face. And even though there was no audio, Derek's aggressive, hateful body language was undeniable. There was no runaway wife. There was only a violent disposal. Gasps of pure shock erupted from the press pool. "That is pure evil," a reporter whispered loudly. Derek's face went chalk white. He had no idea state highway cameras were that advanced. That is edited. That is a deep fake." Derek stammered in blind panic. Richard took 1 step forward, forcing Derek to stumble backward in fear. "Do you think I am an idiot?" Richard whispered, just loud enough for Derek to hear. "My daughter told me everything. About how you mocked her smell, about the $20 you threw at her, about how humiliated you were to be seen with your own wife." "Sir, please. I made a terrible mistake. Just let me talk to her. She will forgive me. She is madly in love with me, sir." Derek started begging, his ego entirely shattered. "My daughter never wants to see your face again," Richard said with freezing finality. "And I guarantee you, this is the last time you will ever see the sun as a free man. Enjoy your last few hours outside a cell block, Derek. Because very soon, the hell you put my daughter through is going to become your permanent residence." Richard turned his back, completely ignoring the shaking, pathetic man behind him. "Throw this trash out," Richard ordered his head of security. "Yes, sir." 2 massive security guards immediately grabbed Derek by both arms. Lifting his feet off the floor, "Let me go. I am her husband. Willow, Willow." Derek screamed hysterically as he was literally dragged out of the hospital lobby and tossed onto the sidewalk. The reporters furiously snapped photos of the humiliating display. The image of Derek being manhandled by security with a terrified look on his face would be on the front page of every newspaper the next morning under the headline, "Heartless Husband Thrown Out by Billionaire Father-in-Law." High above, looking down from the reinforced glass window of the VIP suite, Willow watched the entire scene unfold with dead, empty eyes. There was no pity in her heart. There was only a deep exhaustion that was slowly morphing into unbreakable resolve. Her husband had died to her that night on the highway. The pathetic man screaming down on the sidewalk was nothing more than a stranger who was about to pay off a massive debt. 1 month had passed since that hellish night. Inside the master suite of the sprawling Sterling estate in the Hamptons, Willow stood in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling mirror. She stared at her reflection, feeling as though she were meeting a stranger for the first time. The woman in the mirror was no longer the exhausted, foul-smelling, hollow-eyed Willow. This woman possessed glowing, radiant skin, thanks to top-tier dermatological treatments and world-class nutrition. Her hair, which used to fall out in clumps from severe stress, was now cut into a sharp, elegant shoulder-length bob, framing a healthy, vibrant face. The surgical wound on her stomach had healed perfectly. The scar had been treated with the finest laser therapy and was barely visible. However, the scar on her heart remained, forging itself into an impenetrable suit of armor. Miss Sterling. A personal stylist knocked softly on the open door. "The car is ready. Your father is waiting in his study to head to corporate headquarters. I will be right down," Willow replied. Her voice was firmer, carrying a new weight of authority. Willow smoothed out the tailored, cream-colored blazer she was wearing. Gone were the cheap, faded sweatpants. She was now dressed in a custom power suit from a top New York designer. Around her neck, the antique gold locket still rested, now attached to a brand-new white gold chain. Over the past month, Willow had not just been resting. Richard Sterling had hired top business tutors, etiquette coaches, and legal consultants to come to the estate daily. Willow absorbed the knowledge like a sponge. She realized she was not just a found daughter. She was the future leader of thousands of employees. She refused to embarrass her father. She wanted to prove to the world that the ex-husband who threw her away had discarded a diamond for a handful of dirt. Willow walked downstairs. Richard was sitting in his leather armchair reading the Wall Street Journal while sipping black coffee. Seeing his daughter descend the stairs, the old man's eyes sparkled with immense pride. "You look absolutely stunning, sweetheart," Richard praised genuinely. "Ready for your first day on the board?" "Ready, Dad." Willow smiled, a smile brimming with pure, unshakable confidence. "I am ready to claim what is rightfully mine. Remember," Richard said as they walked toward the waiting black Rolls-Royce, "you are going to see him in the building today. I specifically ordered HR not to fire him. I wanted you to be the one to decide his final fate." Willow nodded, her gaze turning razor-sharp. "I will not let you down, Dad. Derek needs to learn that karma always comes back around, and sometimes it runs over those who think they are untouchable." Today was Willow's now officially going by her birth name, Claire Sterling, inauguration as the youngest board member of Sterling Enterprises. Ironically, it was also the exact day Derek's true punishment began. While Claire was stepping into her new life at the top of the corporate food chain, Derek was drowning in quicksand. Richard Sterling had intentionally delayed the criminal proceedings. Going straight to prison was too easy for Derek. Richard wanted Derek to experience the loss of absolutely everything: his money, his status, his pride, before throwing him in a cage. That morning, Derek arrived at the Sterling Enterprises skyscraper in Manhattan, feeling a chaotic mix of dread and denial. He was technically still an employee, having never received an official termination notice. He foolishly assumed Richard was afraid firing him would cause a PR scandal, so he was keeping him on the payroll. Clinging to the last shreds of his arrogance, Derek walked into the grand lobby. He wore his best tailored suit, trying to keep his chin held high even though every receptionist and security guard was glaring at him in disgust and whispering behind his back. Derek confidently walked up to the executive elevator bank. He tapped his ID badge on the scanner. Beep. Access denied. The LED flashed angry red. Derek tried again. Denied. "Excuse me, Derek." A security guard approached, his face completely devoid of respect. "Your clearance has been revoked for the executive floors." "What the hell are you talking about?" "I am the regional marketing manager." Derek snapped, trying to intimidate the guard. "Not anymore, you aren't." A cold voice echoed from behind him. It was Susan, the director of human resources. She handed Derek a thin brown envelope. "Per the board's directive this morning, you have been reassigned. Your title as manager has been stripped due to gross violations of our corporate ethics clause. You are being transferred to the Subterranean Archives Division." "Subterranean Archives? You mean the rat-infested basement?" Derek yelled, his face turning beet red. "The salary for that position is minimum wage with 0 corporate benefits." A massive drop from your six-figure executive salary. Take it, or you are welcome to resign immediately and pay the $200,000 breach of contract penalty outlined in your executive signing bonus clause, Susan stated with a satisfied smirk. Derek was silenced. He did not have $200,000. His savings were completely wiped out from trying to maintain his fake baller lifestyle and paying retainer fees to criminal defense lawyers, who eventually dropped his case out of fear of crossing Richard Sterling. He was forced to accept the demotion. But the suffering had only just begun. During his lunch break, Derek walked out of the building to get food, planning to drive his white Tahoe. In the corporate plaza parking lot, he saw three large men surrounding his vehicle. "Hey, get the hell away from my car," Derek shouted, jogging over. One of the men, a repo agent, held up a clipboard. "Derek? This vehicle is 3 months behind on payments. And according to our system, your name just hit the national credit blacklist because all your corporate cards defaulted this morning. We are repossessing the unit right now." "What? What missed payments?" "My car payment is automatically deducted from my corporate salary account. Your HR department terminated your corporate credit guarantees the day your scandal went viral, so you have to pay the outstanding balance in cash. Do you have $90,000 to pay it off right now?" The repo man challenged, staring Derek down. Derek frantically checked his wallet. Empty. His bank accounts had been frozen that morning by his bank, flagging him as a high-risk client due to the pending criminal investigations. In his pocket, he only had a crumpled $50 bill. "Please, not right now. I need this car to meet a client later," Derek begged, his voice shrinking. "What client? The warehouse rats?" The repo man mocked. Right there, in broad daylight, in front of dozens of corporate employees watching from the lobby windows, the symbol of Derek's fake wealth, the exact car that made him feel entitled enough to throw his sick wife onto a highway, was hooked up to a tow truck and dragged away. Derek stood frozen on the hot pavement. The sun beat down on his skin, but the sheer humiliation burned his soul into ash. He was going to have to take the subway home. The self-proclaimed king of the road was now a pathetic pedestrian. Having lost his title and his car, Derek realized he desperately needed a lifeline. His mind immediately went to Chloe. Even though she had kicked him out that night, Derek was convinced he could smooth-talk his way back into her bed. After all, they used to have a great time together. That evening, smelling of cheap subway sweat and sheer desperation, Derek showed up at Chloe's luxury apartment building. He rang the doorbell repeatedly. No answer. Derek tried punching in the passcode he always used for her digital lock. Error. The code had been changed. "Chloe, open up. It is me, Derek." He pounded on the door. The door swung open. But it was not Chloe who answered. It was a muscular, shirtless man with a towel wrapped around his waist. He looked much younger and much fitter than Derek. "Who the hell are you?" the man asked aggressively. Derek was stunned. I am Chloe's boyfriend." "Where is she?" Chloe appeared from behind the man's broad shoulders, wearing a silk robe. Seeing Derek looking disheveled, greasy, and stressed out, her face instantly twisted in disgust. "What are you doing here, Derek?" Chloe asked sharply. "Chloe, who is this guy? Are you cheating on me?" Derek pointed a shaking finger at the man. Chloe let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "Cheating? Derek? Get a grip on reality. We were never officially dating. We were just having a good time while you had money. And right now, you are nothing but dead weight. I am not going down with your sinking ship. I sacrificed everything for you. I dumped Willow for you. That just proves how stupid you are." Chloe cut him off brutally. "I heard your car got repoed today. I heard you are boxing files in the basement. Derek, I need a man who can pay the maintenance fees on this apartment. Not a charity case looking for a couch to crash on. You are nothing but a gold digger." Derek cursed at her. "Yeah, and you knew that from day one. You liked showing off your money. Now your money is gone, so my love for you is gone too. Simple math, right?" Chloe flipped her hair over her shoulder. "By the way, meet Chad. He is a VP at a tech firm down the street. He drives a Range Rover, not some financed Chevy. Bye, Derek. Do not come back or Chad is calling the cops." Slam. The heavy wooden door shut right in Derek's face. Derek stared at the door with dead eyes. His knees gave out. He slid down the wall and sat on the hallway floor, his heart shattered into a million pieces. Not because he actually loved Chloe, but because his massive ego had just been stomped into the dirt. He suddenly remembered Willow. Willow, who always greeted him at the door with a hot cup of coffee and rubbed his shoulders after a long day of work. Willow, who never once asked for a designer bag. Willow, who accepted his mediocre entry-level salary when they first got married and never complained. Willow. Derek whispered into the empty hallway. Tears of massive regret began to fall. But that regret was too little, too late. Now, he was entirely alone. No wife, no mistress, no money, no car. Only mountain of debt and the looming shadow of a prison cell. A week later, Sterling Enterprises hosted its 50th anniversary gala dinner in the grand ballroom of a five-star Manhattan hotel. It was the social event of the year, attended by senators, celebrities, and international business moguls. All corporate employees were mandated to attend to help run the massive event. Derek, now technically a basement archives clerk, was assigned the absolute lowest task possible, backup busboy for the catering team, meant to hide in the back clearing dirty dishes. However, because they were understaffed during the cocktail hour, the catering director forced Derek out onto the floor holding a tray of champagne flutes. "Put this vest on and stop complaining," the catering director barked, throwing a cheap waiter's vest at Derek. Derek fought back tears. He had to serve drinks to people who used to be his peers, and even people who used to report to him. He walked through the opulent ballroom with his head bowed, carrying the silver tray, praying to God no one would recognize him. Suddenly, the ballroom lights dimmed. A massive spotlight hit the grand marble staircase at the center of the room. The MC's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, Mr. Richard Sterling, accompanied by our newest board member and the sole heiress to the Sterling Empire, Miss Claire Sterling." A magnificent orchestral track began to play. At the top of the stairs, Claire emerged. Derek's breath hitched in his throat. The tray in his hands shook so violently the champagne flutes clinked together. Claire looked like an absolute goddess. She wore a deep maroon, velvet evening gown that hugged her figure flawlessly, projecting an aura of immense elegance and class. Her hair was styled in a modern updo, adorned with genuine diamonds that sparkled under the spotlight. Her makeup was subtle yet fierce, radiating an intimidating power. There was no trace of the broken, hunching Willow. Claire Sterling walked down the stairs with her chin held high, holding her father's arm. Every step she took commanded absolute respect. The entire ballroom erupted into thunderous applause. Camera flashes went off like strobe lights. Derek stood paralyzed in the dark corner of the room next to a decorative trash can. He felt like a filthy rat staring up at a queen. The distance between them was no longer just the physical distance across the ballroom. It was a gap in destiny that spanned the distance between heaven and earth. When Claire reached the main floor, she began greeting the VIP guests. Her smile was polite but untouchable. Whether intentionally or by chance, Claire turned her head toward the dark corner where the waitstaff stood. Her eyes locked directly onto Derek's. Claire paused for a fraction of a second. Her smile vanished. It was replaced by a flat, piercing glare. She was not shocked. She was not angry. She just looked at Derek as if he were an insignificant piece of furniture that needed to be thrown out. Derek felt his feet nailed to the floor. He wanted to run, but his body was completely rigid. He stared at his ex-wife. The woman he dumped in the mud was now the center of the universe in this room. A male guest, a former colleague who had recently been promoted to take Derek's old job, called out to Derek without looking at his face. "Hey, busboy, grab me a drink." With shaking hands, Derek handed him a glass. The colleague turned around and jumped back in surprise. "Derek? Is that you? Oh my God, man. I did not even recognize you. Wow, you are literally serving drinks now." The colleague's loud, mocking laugh drew the attention of several people nearby. Derek's face burned with a humiliation so intense he wished the floor would open up and swallow him whole. But Claire just turned her head away and let out a light, genuine laugh at a joke made by the handsome tech billionaire standing next to her, completely unbothered by Derek's suffering. That sheer indifference hurt worse than a physical slap across the face. Derek realized the terrifying truth. To Claire, he simply did not exist anymore. The dinner was wrapping up. Derek could not take it anymore. The shame, the regret, and the desperation morphed into reckless insanity. When he saw Claire excuse herself to the restroom, flanked by 2 armed bodyguards, Derek slipped through the staff corridors. He knew a shortcut to the VIP hallway. He waited in the shadows, panting heavily. The moment Claire stepped out of the restroom, Derek lunged out from around the corner. The bodyguards instantly reached inside their jackets, ready to tackle him to the ground. But Claire smoothly raised her right hand, signaling them to stop. "I will handle this," Claire said calmly. The guards took 2 steps back but remained on high alert, hands resting near their concealed firearms. "Willow," Derek pleaded. His voice was cracked, his eyes brimming with tears. "Willow, it is me." Claire stared at him with eyes of ice. "My name is Claire. The Willow you knew died on the side of Interstate 87. "Do not say that, baby." Derek tried to step closer, but her lethal glare froze him in his tracks. "I know I messed up. I was an idiot. I made a terrible mistake. But we have 5 years of memories together, Willow. How can you throw away all the good times over one mistake?" "One mistake." Claire let out a dry, chilling laugh entirely devoid of emotion. "You call attempted murder one mistake? You call sleeping with your secretary the good times? You let my internal organs rot to save a few bucks on antibiotics? Was that a good time? I was under so much stress at work. I promise I will change. Willow, look at me now. I am ruined. I am a busboy. I am broke. I am entirely alone. Do not you have any pity for me?" Derek dropped to his knees on the freezing marble floor, trying to reach out and touch the hem of Claire's velvet gown. "Please, Willow. Give me a second chance. I know you still love me deep down. We can start over. With your money and my business skills, we could be a power couple." Claire looked down at the man groveling at her feet. This man used to be her entire world. This was the man whose anger used to terrify her. Now, he was nothing more than a pathetic, groveling beggar. "You truly have no shame left, do you, Derek?" Claire whispered. Claire unclasped her designer Hermes clutch, worth more than Derek's entire salary. She reached inside her wallet. She pulled out a single bill, a crisp $20 bill. It was brand new, stiff, and perfectly green. Claire held it out, then dropped it right in front of Derek's upturned face. The bill fluttered slowly through the air before landing on the marble floor. The scene was an exact mirror image of that night on the highway, only the roles were entirely reversed. "Take it," Claire commanded. "That is $20. The exact same amount you valued my dignity at that night. Use it to call an Uber back to your roach-infested apartment, or go buy some sleeping pills." Derek stared at the green bill, utterly paralyzed. "Consider that your final severance package from me," Claire continued, her voice cutting straight to the bone. "Tomorrow morning, my legal team is serving you with divorce papers and a civil lawsuit for $10 million for medical damages and severe emotional distress. If you cannot pay it, well, get used to the idea of rotting in a federal prison until you are an old man." "Willow, how could you be so cruel?" Derek sobbed. "I just learned from the best teacher I ever had, and that teacher was you, Derek." Claire gave him a wicked, sideways smirk, then turned on her heel to leave. As she walked away, the heel of her Christian Louboutin stiletto deliberately stepped right onto the $20 bill, leaving a scuff mark before she disappeared down the hall. Derek was left completely alone in the opulent hallway. He picked up the $20 bill bearing the footprint of his ex-wife. He crushed it in his fist as he began to wail, crying hysterically. The sound of his pathetic sobbing echoed off the empty marble walls. He finally realized one universal truth. Karma was not just real. Karma came back with massive compound interest. Claire did not just take back her dignity. She had successfully shattered the last remaining pieces of Derek's sanity. A few days later, Derek was sitting in the dark corner of a dingy, rundown cyber cafe in Queens. His face was hidden behind a dirty surgical mask, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He had no other choice. He had pawned his smartphone just to buy food, and now he was using a sticky public computer to launch his final, desperate attack. His heart was consumed by toxic revenge. After being humiliated at the gala and handed that $20 bill, whatever logic Derek had left vanished completely. If he was going down, he was dragging Claire down with him. He refused to watch his ex-wife be worshipped like a saint while he lived like a rat in the sewers. "Just wait, Claire. The whole world is going to find out what a freak you really are," Derek muttered, staring at the glowing monitor with bloodshot eyes. Derek started typing furiously on a highly popular anonymous Reddit forum and various social media platforms. He completely fabricated a story that twisted the truth. With fingers trembling from rage, he typed a clickbait headline, "The truth about the billionaire heiress, the disgusting wife who betrayed her husband." In the post, Derek slandered Claire mercilessly. He wrote that they divorced because she was a chronic cheater. He claimed her illness was not from surgery, but a severe venereal disease she caught from sleeping around. He stated that she was the one who demanded to be let out on the highway so she could meet up with one of her lovers. Derek painted himself as the ultimate victim, a loving husband destroyed by the ruthless power of Sterling Enterprises' billions. Submit. Derek smashed the enter key. Within hours, the post started gaining traction. Internet trolls and people who hated the ultra-rich quickly took the bait, leaving nasty comments about Claire. Derek smiled sadistically behind his mask. He felt victorious. He believed he had successfully manipulated the court of public opinion. However, he forgot exactly who he was going to war against. He forgot he was messing with Claire Sterling, a woman now backed by the most ruthless PR crisis team and legal department in the country. In her penthouse office at Sterling headquarters, Claire sat calmly in her leather executive chair. Across the desk, her assistant Marcus was showing her an iPad displaying Derek's viral defamation post. "Miss Sterling, our cybersecurity team tracked the IP address of the original poster. It traces back to a public cyber cafe in Queens. We have 100% confirmation the user is Derek," Marcus reported. "Should we contact the authorities for cyber defamation and libel?" Claire took a slow sip of her chamomile tea. Her face showed zero anger, only a deep, profound pity. "Filing charges is a given, Marcus. But before we do that, the public deserves to see the actual truth. Derek wants to play with fire on the internet? Let's burn his entire life to the ground," Claire said coldly. "Release the video," she ordered. The video she referred to was the interior dashcam footage from Derek's Chevy Tahoe. The camera had recorded both crystal-clear video of the cabin and high-definition audio. Claire's legal team had secured the memory card the exact same day the repo men towed the car away. It was a brilliant, strategic move that Derek was far too stupid to anticipate. That very afternoon, the official Sterling Enterprises corporate accounts, along with several massive news outlets, simultaneously dropped a 3-minute video titled "The Truth at Mile 45. The video showed the dark highway illuminated by the headlights. But the audio told the entire horrific story. Derek's voice echoed clearly and violently. "Get out. I am going to vomit smelling your body. There is $20. Call an Uber or go buy some medicine. I do not care. Do not come back until that smell is gone." This was followed by Willow's gut-wrenching, agonizing cries, begging for mercy because she was in excruciating pain, then the loud slam of the car door, and finally, the roar of the V8 engine as the car sped away, leaving a dying woman in the storm. The video broke the internet in a matter of minutes. It did not just go viral. It became the #1 trending topic across every single social media platform in the nation. Derek, who was still sitting in the cyber cafe, excitedly refreshed his browser page, expecting to see more hate directed at Claire. But what he found instead was a massive tsunami of public outrage aimed directly at him. The comment section on his fake post was obliterated by pure hatred. What kind of psycho husband does this? Calling his sick wife a rotting corpse? That is the voice of a literal demon, not a human being. Whoever posted this anonymous lie is obviously the abusive ex-husband trying to save his own skin. Lock this psychopath up. Internet, do your thing. Find him. Derek's ice went wide. His desperate counterattack had become a boomerang that just decapitated him. The blood drained from his face. He realized he had just dug his own grave 10 times deeper than it already was. The internet is an unforgiving place, but the real world was about to be far more brutal for Derek. The dashcam video meant Derek's face, voice, and identity were completely unmasked to the public. Within an hour, internet sleuths had tracked down exactly where Derek was currently staying, a cheap, rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. That night, Derek sneaked back from the cyber cafe, terrified. He felt like every single person on the street was staring at him. The guys hanging outside the bodega, the women walking their dogs, the teenagers on the corner, they all glared at him, whispering and pointing. "Is that the guy from the video?" "Yeah, the scumbag who dumped his wife on the highway while she was bleeding out. What a piece of trash. Hope he rots." Derek sped up his walking pace, keeping his head down as far as it could go. He finally reached the parking lot of his dingy motel, but his cheap suitcase and all of his clothes were already thrown out onto the asphalt. The motel manager, Mrs. Gable, a tough, heavy-set woman smoking a cigarette, stood in front of his door with her hands on her hips. She looked furious. "Mrs. Gable, why is all my stuff outside?" Derek asked, panicking. "Get the hell off my property, Mrs." Gable shouted, her raspy voice echoing through the courtyard, drawing the attention of other tenants who stepped out to watch. I am not letting a woman-abusing monster sleep under my roof. You bring bad luck. But I paid for the whole week, Derek pleaded. Take your dirty money and leave. Mrs. Gable threw a handful of crumpled cash right at Derek's chest. I have a daughter. It makes me sick to my stomach thinking about her ending up with a psychopath like you. Walk away before I let these boys drag you out. Several tough-looking guys from the neighborhood started stepping closer, cracking their knuckles. They had all seen the video, and they were looking for an excuse to exact some street justice. Get out of here, man. Before we put you in the hospital, one of the guys yelled. Derek was terrified. This social execution was infinitely more terrifying than getting fired. He had nowhere to go. No hotel would accept him because his face was plastered all over the news. None of his old friends were answering his calls. Derek frantically shoved his clothes into a black garbage bag because his suitcase zipper was broken. He ran away as fast as his legs could carry him, chased out of the neighborhood by the boos and curses of the locals. That night, Derek slept behind a dumpster in a commercial alleyway, using flattened cardboard boxes as a mattress. The freezing night wind pierced his bones. He stared up at the dark, cloudy sky. He remembered Willow, sick and bleeding, abandoned in the freezing rain on the shoulder of the highway. So, this is what it feels like, Derek whispered, his tears falling and soaking into the dirty cardboard. This is what it feels like to be thrown away like trash. The physical and mental agony he was feeling right now was only a fraction of what Claire had endured that night. Karma was forcing him to learn empathy the hardest way possible. Derek's run as a fugitive did not last long. The very next morning, as he was trying to buy a stale bagel with his last few dollars at a gas station convenience store, 2 police cruisers swerved into the parking lot, lights flashing and sirens blaring. The sound made Derek's heart stop. 4 uniformed officers jumped out. One of them was holding a warrant. Derek panicked. His cowardly instincts took over. He dropped the bagel and bolted toward the back alley of the gas station. Stop right there, or we will use force, an officer shouted. Derek did not listen. He tried to scramble up a chain-link fence, but his body, weakened by stress, lack of sleep, and hunger, betrayed him. A young athletic officer easily caught his ankle and yanked him down. Derek fell hard, face first into a muddy puddle. Please, officer, please. I didn't kill anyone. Derek screamed as his arms were forcefully twisted behind his back. Derek, you are under arrest for felony domestic violence, reckless endangerment resulting in severe bodily harm, and criminal cyberstalking and defamation, the arresting officer stated firmly as he slapped the freezing steel handcuffs tightly around Derek's wrists. Click. The sound of the cuffs locking was the final nail in the coffin of Derek's freedom. A crowd of onlookers at the gas station had already gathered. Everyone had their cell phones out, recording the arrest. Not a single person felt bad for him. In fact, they were cheering. That is what you get, you psycho. Lock him up and throw away the key. Do not go easy on him, officer. Derek was dragged up and shoved into the back of the police cruiser. His head hung in ultimate defeat. His face was covered in mud. His clothes reeked of sweat and garbage. He was in the exact same filthy, foul-smelling condition he had mocked his wife for being in. The irony was absolute perfection. In the back of the cruiser heading toward the central precinct, Derek sobbed uncontrollably. They were not tears of genuine repentance. They were tears of pure fear. He knew Richard Sterling was not playing games. He was going to rot in a cell for a very long time. He tried to think of his parents' phone number, but then remembered his own family had publicly disowned him after the video went viral. Derek was completely, hopelessly alone in the world. 3 months later, the atmosphere inside Rikers Island was suffocatingly grim. The towering concrete walls and razor wire separated the inmates from the outside world. Derek sat in the corner of a crowded holding cell he shared with 10 other inmates. His head had been shaved bald. He had lost 20 pounds, looking skeletal. His skin, which he used to meticulously groom, was now covered in bug bites and bruises. In prison, Derek was at the absolute bottom of the food chain. The other inmates, even the hardened violent offenders, harbored a deep hatred for men who abused women. Derek was the cell block's punching bag. He was forced to massage the feet of the gang leaders, wash their dirty laundry in the toilet, and eat whatever cold scraps they left behind. That afternoon, the corrections officer turned on the television mounted in the cell block hallway so the inmates could watch the news. Derek's hollow eyes locked onto the screen. Broadcasting live from a grand ribbon-cutting ceremony was Claire Sterling. She looked absolutely radiant. Claire was cutting the ribbon to officially open the Claire Foundation. a state-of-the-art charity hospital dedicated to providing free surgeries and top-tier post-operative care for underprivileged women. Claire stepped up to the podium. Her voice was soft, yet it carried immense power. I was once at absolute rock bottom. I know what it feels like to suffer from a life-threatening infection without access to proper medication. I know the agonizing pain of being thrown away because someone deemed me worthless. Claire spoke to the cameras, her eyes welling with tears, but her smile remaining unbreakable. I built this foundation to ensure that no woman ever has to endure what I survived. Every woman deserves the right to heal, the right to dignity, and the right to be valued. The camera panned to show thunderous applause from state senators, medical professionals, and the public. Standing right behind Claire, Richard Sterling watched his daughter with bursting pride, and standing right next to Claire was a handsome young man with glasses, Dr. Julian, the chief surgeon who had saved Claire's life on her first night at the hospital. The way Dr. Julian looked at Claire was filled with nothing but pure, unconditional love and profound respect. Derek watched the screen, his chest physically aching as his heart shattered into dust. He saw Claire laughing genuinely, a laugh that used to belong to him, but that he had silenced with verbal abuse. He saw her breathtaking beauty, a beauty he used to possess, but that he threw away because he was too impatient and disgusted to help her through her darkest hour. That is my wife. That is my wife. Derek mumbled to himself in a delirious daze. Tears streamed down his hollow cheeks. Your wife? A heavily tattooed inmate sitting next to him slapped the back of Derek's bald head hard. Keep dreaming, loser. A woman in that league would never look twice at a cockroach like you. That is the billionaire you dumped on the highway, you idiot. She is a diamond, and you are just the dirt scraped off the bottom of her shoe. Those harsh words snapped Derek completely back to reality. The inmate was right. He was nobody. Derek pulled his knees to his chest and buried his face in his hands. His wailing cries of regret erupted, echoing uselessly against the freezing iron bars of his cell. He finally understood his fatal mistake. He only loved Willow when she was perfect and convenient. The moment she showed a flaw, he threw her away. But true love is proven when a partner is at their absolute lowest. Now, Claire was soaring high above the clouds, entirely out of his reach. Meanwhile, Derek would spend the best years of his life locked inside a concrete box, eternally haunted by the ghosts of his own colossal stupidity. 2 years later, it was a beautiful morning in the sprawling gardens behind the Sterling estate in the Hamptons. The warm morning sun illuminated the blooming sunflowers perfectly. Claire sat on an elegant wrought iron bench reading a novel. On the glass table next to her sat a cup of Earl Grey tea and a vase of fresh-cut flowers that filled the air with a wonderful, sweet fragrance. Claire's life was completely healed. Her father's business was thriving under her new strategic leadership. Her foundation had successfully saved hundreds of women's lives across the country. Her name was now a national symbol of resilience and female empowerment. Claire, a gentle voice called out to her. Claire turned around. Doctor. Julian was walking toward her, carrying a tray of freshly baked cookies he had made himself. Their relationship had progressed slowly, but it was incredibly solid. Julian was the exact opposite of Derek. He was endlessly patient. He valued her mind over her appearance, and he treated her as an equal. Take a break from work, Julian smiled, sitting across from her. We are still going to the children's shelter this afternoon, right? Absolutely, the kids are waiting for us, Claire answered brightly. Suddenly, Claire's iPhone buzzed on the table. It was a text message from her head lawyer, Marcus. Update. Derek was just transferred to the maximum security state penitentiary upstate after starting a riot in the county jail. The judge added 5 more years to his sentence. The state has officially seized all his remaining assets to pay off your civil suit damages. Claire read the message with zero expression. In the past, simply reading Derek's name would make her heart race with anxiety or pain. Now, it felt like reading a weather report about a rainstorm in a city she didn't even live in. It had absolutely no effect on her sunny day. She pressed delete. She erased the message with the exact same ease with which she had erased Derek from her existence. Bad news? Julian asked, noticing her setting her phone face down. Claire shook her head, pushing the phone far away. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the fresh flowers, the warm cookies, and the crisp, clean air of absolute freedom. No, just taking out the trash from the past, Claire replied, flashing a beautiful, sweet smile. She gently touched the antique gold locket resting on her chest, the very object that had saved her life. She silently thanked God for every ounce of pain she had endured. because that exact pain was the vehicle that drove her to this beautiful destination. It smells incredible out here today, Julian murmured. The cookies? No. Claire looked up at the vast, endless blue sky. It smells like a new life. It smells like dignity. Claire closed her book. She was ready to face today, tomorrow, and the rest of her life with her head held high. The story of the sick woman abandoned on the highway was officially over. Now, there was only the legend of Claire Sterling, a woman whose life was fragranced with nothing but kindness, power, and ultimate success.